When resentment surfaces, it doesn't always announce itself with open hostility or angry outbursts. Often the bitterness hides in subtle gestures and carefully masked remarks, what we might call silent resentment. Over time, this unspoken friction can corrode relationships at work, in friendships, or within family ties. Recognizing it early not only preserves your peace of mind, but also offers a chance to address issues before they escalate. In this installment, we'll explore initial cues that suggest someone might be silently resentful of you, forced agreeableness, and underhanded teasing. We'll do so through a modern Stoicism lens, focusing on how to remain calm, discerning, and ethically grounded when you suspect hidden antagonism. Rather than being thrown off by subtle negativity, a Stoic approach equips you to maintain your composure, gather evidence thoughtfully, and respond in a measured way, protecting both your self-respect and the possibility of future reconciliation. Now, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, make sure to like the video and hit that subscribe button. Only 15% of my audience is currently subscribed, so if these insights resonate with you, I'd love for you to join our community and turn on the notification bell to stay updated. Quiet tensions, Stoic insights. Before we examine these cues in detail, let's establish why modern Stoicism is relevant. The Stoic perspective reminds us that while we can't fully control whether someone resents us, we can control our interpretation of their behavior and our response to it. We don't want to become paranoid, seeing antagonism in every sideways glance, nor should we dismiss legitimate signs of trouble. In the Stoic framework, we aim to perceive the world as accurately as possible, neither magnifying nor minimizing a potential threat, all while preserving our inner stability. If a co-worker or friend is seething underneath polite smiles, that's part of life's unpredictable terrain, an external event. We can't demand that they love us or that they handle their feelings openly, but we can watch for the signs, keep a balanced mind, and if needed, address the tension calmly rather than ignoring it or reacting with hostility. Forced agreeableness and underhanded teasing often come across as relatively benign. To casual onlookers, the person might just seem polite or playful. Yet beneath the surface, there's an edge of resentment, something they're not expressing outright. Spotting these cues early can prevent confusion, miscommunications, or a gradual buildup of frustration on both sides. First cue, forced agreeableness. 1. What it looks like. Imagine you propose an idea in a group setting, maybe a team project at work or a plan for a friend's weekend outing. Suddenly, one individual nods vigorously at every detail, offering smiles and, "Absolutely, that's great," comments without adding any personal input. At first, it seems encouraging. They must like your idea, right? But over time, you notice they rarely engage in deeper discussions. They rarely offer alternative viewpoints or suggestions. Their agreement feels hollow. This is forced agreeableness, a pattern in which someone outwardly expresses support or positivity, yet you sense a certain hollowness behind it. Their tone may sound perfunctory, their eye contact fleeting. They might say, "Yes, let's do that," but never follow through with real enthusiasm or help. In truth, they might be nodding along only to avoid conflict or to camouflage a deeper frustration. 2. Why resentment might hide behind polite smiles. People who harbor resentment sometimes lack the confidence or inclination to speak up. Perhaps they worry about creating tension or losing face. If you happen to occupy a position of influence, maybe you're the project lead or the friend everyone admires, they may choose to appear agreeable rather than openly challenge you. Internally, though, they're stewing. Why does everyone always go with their ideas? Or, I don't actually think this plan is good, but I'll keep quiet. Forced agreeableness can also arise from a sense of social pressure. In certain environments, disagreeing might be frowned upon. The resentful individual decides it's safer to pretend to align with you, collecting small grudges with each meeting, each conversation. Eventually, this can erupt in more serious negativity or sabotage, but for now, it manifests as a quiet compliance that doesn't match what they truly feel. 3. Clues to watch for. Lack of genuine engagement. They nod and say, "Sounds good," but never volunteer input or ask clarifying questions. Tense micro-expressions. The corners of their mouth might tighten briefly before they offer that wide grin, or their eyes might flick away even as they vocalize agreement. Phrasing that ends conversations. They might say, "Whatever you think," or "Sure, that's fine," in a way that sounds final, discouraging further discussion. Reluctance to follow through. Despite saying yes, they contribute little to your plan's actual execution. If you assign tasks, they deliver them half-heartedly or wait until you remind them repeatedly. 4. A Stoic response. From a modern Stoic standpoint, we first remain observant rather than jumping to conclusions. We note how often they exhibit forced compliance and whether it happens only around certain topics or every time you propose something. Next, we engage with kindness but not blindness. For example, you might gently probe, "I notice you always agree with me, but I'd truly love to hear your own perspective. Is there something we could do differently?" Instead of confrontation, you open a door for honest dialogue. If they refuse to walk through that door, if they keep up the yes-man routine, then at least you've made it clear you're open to hearing real feedback. Stoicism also tells us not to take their forced positivity too personally. Their hidden resentment could stem from factors unrelated to you, feeling undervalued in general, insecurities, or external stress. While it may affect you, it's not necessarily your doing. If you find no immediate resolution, maintain your composure and adjust accordingly. You might share tasks or information in a transparent way, ensuring everyone's input is equally valued. By doing so, you reduce the chance that their forced agreeableness will morph into deeper grudges. If they persistently remain superficial, a final Stoic step is acceptance. You can't force genuine engagement or goodwill. You continue to act with integrity, giving them space to either come forward or remain in their shell of pretend harmony. Second cue, underhanded teasing or jokes 1. The nature of passive-aggressive humor. Sometimes resentment pops out in witty one-liners or so-called jokes that leave you feeling uneasy. This might appear in small group gatherings. Someone cracks a joke about your habits, your shortcomings, or your past mistakes, then says, "Just kidding." The remark stings, yet they deliver it with a grin. A newcomer to the situation might think nothing of it, but you sense a sharper edge. This is underhanded teasing. Commentary that pretends to be humor, but carries a barbed subtext. Maybe it zeroes in on an insecurity of yours, or it subtly belittles an accomplishment, or it hints that you're self-centered. The teaser may laugh it off or try to get others to laugh, seeking a momentary triumph at your expense. 2. How it signals resentment. Why wrap bitterness in a joke instead of confronting issues directly? Usually, the person finds direct confrontation uncomfortable, or they believe the group would side with you in a serious debate. Delivering insults in comedic form grants them plausible deniability. If you protest, they can claim you lack a sense of humor. This mechanism reveals a hidden resentment. They feel safe enough to take a swipe at you, but not honest enough to do it openly. For instance, a friend who's envious of your job promotion might tease you at a party. "Well, look who's suddenly too good for the rest of us," and then chuckle, scanning the room to see if others join in. The real message: I'm resentful that you got ahead. But they're testing the water in a way that allows them to retreat under just joking if you look offended. 3. Common telltale signs. Repeated themes. They keep joking about the same topic. Your new car, your schedule, your romantic status, suggesting it's a sore spot for them. Group setting. Underhanded jokes often appear when there's an audience. They might want that group validation or to see if others will chime in. Momentary pause. If you watch closely, you might see a flicker of real tension in their face before the forced laugh. They're testing how you'll react. Deflection. If you point out the remark as hurtful, they say, "Calm down, it's just a joke," dismissing your feelings rather than addressing them. 4. Responding like a Stoic. Modern Stoicism advises measured responses that don't feed the cycle of aggression. If you suspect underhanded jabs, your best initial move is to stay composed. Smiling calmly or giving a neutral nod acknowledges you heard them, but avoids giving them the emotional reaction they might crave. Later, you can address it privately. "You mentioned that thing about me being too fancy for the rest of you. Is something bothering you?" This approach respects the possibility that it might be a genuine joke that didn't land well, or it might be actual resentment. By discussing it away from the group, you reduce the chance they feel humiliated in front of others. If they continue with the same pattern, insisting it's all in your head, telling you you're oversensitive, then Stoicism helps you preserve dignity by not engaging in back-and-forth insults. You maintain healthy boundaries, spending less energy in interactions where you're treated like a punchline. Stoicism also teaches internal detachment. Someone's edgy jokes do not define your worth or truth. They reflect that person's internal conflicts or envy. By remembering this, you lessen the emotional sting. Instead of letting each barb wound you, you observe it, decide whether it warrants a response, and act calmly. The bigger picture, understanding these first two cues, how they often intertwine. Forced agreeableness and underhanded teasing can coexist. A resentful individual might outwardly support your suggestions, yet when you succeed, they strike with a sarcastic remark. In one breath, they'll say, "Oh yeah, do your thing," and in the next breath, they'll joke, "Guess it's easy when you have all the luck." These contradictory behaviors stem from the same root, hidden frustration that they can't or won't communicate openly. Why early recognition matters. By attuning yourself to these subtleties, you reduce the risk of misreading someone's motives. If you let forced agreeableness fool you, you might rely on that person's cooperation, only to discover they're sabotaging you behind the scenes. If you ignore underhanded teasing, their resentment might grow, and you might find yourself increasingly uneasy around them, uncertain why their jokes always seem to cut so deep. Early detection fosters clarity, giving you a chance to address the tension rationally. Stoic, calm as the mainstay. Each time you notice these cues, remind yourself that Stoicism is about responding, not reacting. You pause, reflect. Are they truly resentful, or did they have an off day? Am I misinterpreting? Gather a bit of evidence, consistency over multiple interactions. Then, if it appears real, decide how to handle it. A simple conversation, an apology if you realize you contributed to their bitterness, or a boundary if they keep lobbing passive-aggressive jokes. Modern Stoicism also advocates not losing sleep over unchangeable external realities. If they refuse honest dialogue, that's their choice. Your job is to maintain your composure, treat them with fairness, and not let their hidden negativity poison your inner state. A brief illustration. Suppose you have a colleague named Harper. During team meetings, Harper nods enthusiastically at your ideas, rarely offering any suggestions of their own. You sense they're just going through the motions. Meanwhile, outside of meetings, you catch Harper making quips about how you're the boss's favorite or always hogging the spotlight. They say it with a laugh, but it unsettles you. One day, a co-worker tells you Harper complained that you overshadow others. You piece together the signs, forced compliance in meetings, plus snide jokes outside. With stoic clarity, you calmly approach Harper one-on-one. You express, "I appreciate your support in meetings, but I also want to ensure everyone's ideas are heard. And I've sensed from a few comments that you might have concerns about how we collaborate. I'm open to your feedback." Harper might deny any issue, or they might open up. Either way, you haven't escalated the conflict. You've just acknowledged potential tension. If Harper continues to deny while persisting in passive-aggressive remarks, you let them be. You remain respectful, keep your boundaries, and ensure that in group settings, tasks and recognition are distributed fairly. You refuse to dwell on their resentment, since you cannot force them to be direct. When to engage, when to let go. Not every forced smile or teasing joke calls for intervention. People have different communication styles, and some jokes or subdued enthusiasm might be harmless. The Stoic notion is to observe patterns, not single instances. If the pattern clearly indicates hidden hostility, consider engaging gently, privately, if the relationship matters enough to salvage. For acquaintances or situations where deeper involvement isn't necessary, you might choose to let it go, ensuring it doesn't intrude on your peace. At times, confrontation can make matters worse if the person is deeply entrenched in denial or is prone to hostility. In such cases, a Stoic approach might be to note the risk and adjust your expectations. Trust them less with important tasks, or rely on them less for emotional support. This isn't cynical, it's prudent. You're simply not ignoring reality. Conclusion: opening the door to clarity. In this first part, we've examined two early cues, forced agreeableness and underhanded teasing, that can signal someone's unspoken resentments. Both revolve around a mismatch between what they verbally project, politeness, humor, and the tension lurking beneath. With a modern Stoic mindset, we strive for a balance of alertness and tranquility. We notice, we pay attention to repeated signs rather than dismiss them or overreact. We remain calm. We don't retaliate in kind or let suspicion cloud every interaction. We attempt reasoned dialogue. If feasible, we approach the person in private, clarifying our perceptions and inviting honesty. We accept what we can't fix. If they insist on hiding resentment or refuse to address it, we adapt without letting the situation destroy our serenity. Silent resentment rarely disappears on its own, but through consistent Stoic practice, we can stay grounded, respond thoughtfully, and, if needed, protect ourselves from deeper harm. By preventing forced smiles and pointed jokes from undermining our confidence, we foster healthier dynamics, or at least safeguard our own peace of mind until the other person is ready to engage more openly. As we proceed through the remaining parts, we'll explore additional cues that someone's resentment lingers beneath the surface, like passive-aggressive withholding, abrupt changes in body language, curt or dismissive interactions, and more. Building a comprehensive picture helps us navigate challenging relationships with resilience and empathy, reflecting the core tenets of modern Stoicism in action. In the previous installment, we explored how silently resentful people can mask their feelings through forced agreeableness or underhanded teasing remarks. Both cues hint at inner tension that never surfaces in direct confrontation, and recognizing them allows us to respond with a steadiness informed by modern Stoicism. Now we continue by examining two additional cues: passive-aggressive withholding and the conflicted signals that arise through body language. While both may appear less obvious at first glance, they can profoundly influence relationships. A friend, colleague, or relative might withhold information or assistance, or their physical demeanor might reveal hostility despite friendly words. Guided by Stoic insights, we can observe such subtle antagonisms, maintain a clear mind, and choose rational, balanced responses. Let us begin with the notion of passive-aggressive withholding. By definition, it involves the intentional or semi-conscious refusal to provide resources, communication, or acknowledgement that someone normally would. An example might be a co-worker who neglects to forward an important email, leaving you underprepared for a meeting. Alternatively, it could be a family member who forgets to mention updated holiday plans, conveniently leading you to miss the gathering. At first, these oversights might appear like genuine mistakes. Over time, however, the repetition of forgotten details starts to look like a pattern of sabotage. In Stoic terms, such withholding belongs to the realm of externals, actions and decisions we cannot fully control. Whether someone chooses to share information or withhold it is ultimately up to them. But the modern Stoic recognizes that we still have power over our own investigative efforts, our ability to track details, and our skill in calmly confronting the situation. Why does passive-aggressive withholding indicate underlying resentment? Typically, a genuinely neutral or supportive individual has no motive to watch you stumble in ignorance. They might not go out of their way to coddle you, but they also have no reason to systematically exclude you from relevant information. A coworker who likes or respects you will share needed data without prompting. A friend who harbors no hostility will remember to invite you to group events. When that normal goodwill is replaced by reluctance or subtle silence, it often means a simmering discontent drives their behavior. A person might have felt overshadowed or disrespected. They may resent your position, your success, or some prior slight, and they express it through non-cooperation. The Stoic approach here is not to leap to accusations. Anger and suspicion can distort our view, but to observe quietly and gather consistent signs. If, for instance, the same person repeatedly omits vital updates, never remembers to pass along essential facts, or consistently avoids giving help they'd otherwise be expected to give, we may conclude that it's not accidental. Yet modern Stoicism reminds us not to spin ourselves into paranoid frenzy. Mistakes do happen. People can be busy or absent-minded for reasons unrelated to resentment. Our job is to remain calm, note the pattern over time, and see if it aligns with other cues. Should we find real evidence, we then decide on a course of action. We might raise the issue politely, such as, "I've noticed a few times now that I've been left out of these email chains. Could you let me know how we're organizing them? I don't want to miss anything important." A neutral tone, free of aggression, often disarms a passive-aggressive person. If they were testing whether they can inconvenience you, they see your composure and diligence, and they find less reward in persisting. The deeper resentments may remain, but you reduce the chance of being sabotaged. Another approach is to specify responsibilities in a transparent manner, especially in work settings, publicly posting schedules, tasks, or instructions so that no single person can sabotage the flow of data. In personal relationships, a Stoic lens suggests calmly verifying details on your own whenever possible. If a friend or sibling is known to forget to invite you, follow up yourself. Let them see that you're not dependent on their selective memory. Maintaining your equilibrium, you neither accuse them nor become a helpless victim. This leads us into broader reflections on how best to handle the emotional weight that comes with realizing someone is withholding resources as a subtle way to express resentment. It's normal to feel hurt, upset, or disappointed, but the Stoic tradition advises that anger or despair over another's behavior only grants them more power over our mental state. We can accept that they behave this way for reasons of their own, and we can politely seek solutions without losing our composure. If the pattern continues, we might limit our reliance on them, delegating tasks or verifying information through alternative channels. We do not have to wage war over their negativity, nor do we have to accommodate it. In Stoic terms, we preserve our peace by focusing on what we can do, documenting, clarifying, double-checking, while letting go of the notion that we can force them to be cooperative. If we truly suspect deeper conflict, we can extend an invitation to talk about underlying frustrations. Sometimes offering them a chance to speak openly can dissipate the resentment. Or they might deny any problem, in which case we accept that we cannot draw sincerity out of them against their will. We remain civil, but we plan accordingly. The other cue we examine now is the presence of body language discrepancies. Nonverbal expressions, often more honest than words, can be the key to spotting silent resentment. We may notice a mismatch between what the person says and how they hold themselves. They might claim everything is fine while standing with tense shoulders, pursed lips, or a forced smile that disappears the moment they think no one is looking. Eye contact may be minimal, or they might roll their eyes when they think you're not paying attention. A handshake might be extra brief and limp, or their body angles away from you in conversation. They might speak politely, but avoid proximity, stepping back whenever you step forward. Stoicism teaches observation, discernment without immediate judgment. So, if we sense that someone's tone is cordial, yet their posture and facial cues signal discomfort, we stay calm and gather more context. Perhaps they're simply shy or anxious. If, however, this tension only arises around you, or it consistently appears right after certain triggers, like your mention of a personal success or a decision in which they had no say, silent resentment becomes more likely. Body language discrepancies can also appear in quick micro-expressions, a brief glare or tightening of the jaw when you announce good news, replaced by a fake smile a split second later. Resentful individuals sometimes struggle to maintain a facade of politeness. They might nod along, but a half-second scowl or furrowed brow betrays how they really feel. They could shift restlessly or tap their fingers, seeming impatient for the conversation to end. Modern Stoicism invites us to note these signals with a cool head. We do not need to call them out publicly or shame the person. Rather, we tuck that observation away, balancing it against other evidence. If the same coworker who withholds vital information also reveals tension in posture or looks away whenever you speak, it's likely they're quietly harboring ill will. Responding to these body language clues in a Stoic manner entails neither accusations nor an attempt to expose them. Instead, we hold in mind that they may be battling personal conflicts, insecurities, or grudges. We approach them with calm empathy where possible, yet also with protective awareness. The Stoic emphasis on virtue means we do not stoop to passive aggression ourselves, nor do we yield to cynicism about human nature. We can, if appropriate, attempt a one-on-one conversation that invites honesty. We might say, "I notice you seem uneasy around me sometimes. If there's anything you want to discuss, I'm open to it." The resentful person might deny everything, but occasionally, such a gesture can open the door to resolution. If they remain evasive, we accept that we cannot compel them to drop their guard. From a Stoic vantage, the ultimate goal is to preserve our internal equanimity while handling external frictions ethically. We remain watchful, but we refuse to become either naive or vengeful. If body language discrepancies confirm that our polite coworker or friend actually resents us, we can set boundaries for our emotional safety. That might mean spending less time alone with them or structuring interactions to keep them constructive and short. We do not need to pretend we share warm affection if their body says otherwise. Stoicism does not require illusions. It requires clarity, compassion, and an untroubled sense of self. It is also worth remembering that silent resentment sometimes arises from misunderstandings or personal struggles that have little to do with us. Perhaps the coworker who stands rigidly and seems to avoid eye contact is dealing with personal stress or a health issue. Maybe their withholding of assistance isn't as deliberate as it appears. The Stoic approach to evidence warns us not to rely on a single instance or only on fleeting impressions. We aim to see repeated patterns before concluding that resentment is at play. If we do confirm it, then we weigh our responses carefully. Direct but calm conversation, a willingness to correct any real harm we might have done, and acceptance if they refuse to budge. A scenario might clarify how these two cues converge. Imagine you have a colleague named Ian. You've noticed for weeks that Ian leaves you off-group messages about a collaborative project. He claims ignorance each time. Meanwhile, in team meetings, he avoids eye contact with you, crossing his arms and offering curt nods. When you propose an idea, you see him exhale sharply or roll his eyes for a split second before schooling his expression. He might quickly follow up with, "Oh, sure, that's great," but his physical demeanor conveys impatience or distaste. Instead of confronting him with anger or ignoring it altogether, a Stoic approach means calmly verifying what's happening. You keep records of who was included on project updates. You politely mention the omissions, giving him a chance to clarify. If the pattern persists, you can approach him in private. "Ian, I've noticed you don't seem comfortable when I share ideas, and I've often missed out on important messages. Is there anything on your mind? I want us to work smoothly together." If he denies any issue, you accept his statement but remain watchful. You also set up a direct line of communication or ask the team lead to specify that all updates must copy everyone. You keep your tone measured, showing neither fear nor aggression. Should Ian's resentment run deep, your calmness might frustrate him further, or it might disarm him enough to reduce future passive aggression. From a Stoic perspective, you have handled your side of the relationship with reason and composure. Whether Ian chooses to be forthright or continues harboring silent anger is beyond your control. The important part is that you have recognized the cues, withholding and incongruent body language, responded thoughtfully, and safeguarded your own peace of mind. In personal relationships, we can see similar patterns. Perhaps you have a cousin, Rosa, who used to share family updates generously, but for the past few months has neglected to pass along news about gatherings or changes in schedule. You consistently find yourself hearing about events at the last minute. Meanwhile, whenever you see Rosa, she flashes a quick forced smile and shrugs off conversation. Her arms remain folded, eyes dart around. She offers minimal commentary on your life achievements. If you manage to bring up your concerns, she might say, "Oh, I didn't realize it mattered," or "I thought you were busy." Stoic advice might be first to examine your own actions. Have you slighted Rosa inadvertently or overshadowed her achievements in the family setting? Are there ways to extend an olive branch, inviting her to share her feelings openly? If she never does, or if she reacts with denial or more avoidance, you note that you cannot force closeness. You might gather your own information about family plans from another source, circumventing her gatekeeping. You do so with neither malice nor desperation. You accept that her resentment is her burden to carry and you remain cordial but not reliant. In all these scenarios, part of the Stoic practice is learning not to internalize the negativity you detect. We might sense an urge to confront them harshly or to withdraw in sadness or anger. By drawing on the Stoic principle that we only truly govern our own judgments and choices, we see that their silent animosity need not rattle our equilibrium. We can choose how to respond, from calm conversation to boundary setting, or from problem solving to acceptance. We refrain from illusions, pretending everything is fine if it isn't, but we also refrain from needless drama. Silent resentment thrives on confusion, hidden agendas, and reactive outbursts. By staying clear-eyed and purposeful, we reduce its impact on our emotional well-being. Now, some exciting news. Our channel now offers a members club. By joining it, you'll unlock exclusive benefits, deeper content dives, and personal insights. Join us on this journey, and let's build a meaningful life together. And I also humbly ask you to leave a comment, as it helps my channel immensely. If you do not know what to comment, just write "better" every day, so I know you reached this far. And don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Also, I've linked some books on Stoicism that helped me become the man I am today, and will also help you achieve a Stoic mindset. Some might wonder, though, if ignoring these cues would not be easier. Stoicism does not mean passivity. While we shouldn't overanalyze every sideways glance, ignoring repeated, consistent signs of sabotage or hostility can be risky. Our personal or professional life may suffer if we allow silent resentments to fester unchecked. We might inadvertently let a resentful team member sabotage joint projects, or we might let a friend's bitterness corrode what could be addressed early. Stoic reasoning involves prudent action, calm, measured, neither panicked nor complacent. That is why we carefully gather evidence, confirm patterns, and then choose a rational path. Confrontation does not always solve the issue. Indeed, some individuals will deny their resentment or lash out if pressed. Even so, the Stoics' calm attempt to clarify the situation remains worthwhile because it sets the record straight on our side. Should the situation escalate or remain stuck, at least we have not violated our own integrity by stooping to the same passive-aggressive tactics. We preserve the Stoic virtues of courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom in how we engage with them. We can also combine these insights with the cues from Part 1. If someone's forced agreeableness has escalated into the realm of withholding crucial resources and showing tense, distant body language, we see a mounting pattern of hidden conflict. We might realize we should take steps to either reduce reliance on them or, if possible, find a mediator who can bring issues to light. The Stoic hallmark remains steady composure. Where others might resort to emotional showdowns, we adopt the more thoughtful approach, aiming to do as little harm as possible while preserving our own mental freedom. At times, we might discover that the silent resentment directed at us stems from misunderstandings we could correct. An individual might have believed a rumor or misinterpreted our actions or felt overshadowed. Our calm invitation to talk, combined with a willingness to apologize if we truly erred, can sometimes dissolve resentment. Stoicism does not forbid apologizing or empathizing. Instead, it cautions us never to become enslaved to the whims of another's hidden negativity. We extend empathy, but we do not let their bitterness define our emotions or lead us into an anxious desire to please them at all costs. If the attempt at dialogue fails, we move on, focusing on what is in our power, our own moral stance, our own sense of virtue. This stance allows for compassion too. Resentment often arises from deep-seated insecurities, fears, or feelings of inadequacy. The co-worker who sabotages your project might be deeply worried about job security, feeling overshadowed by your performance. The cousin who withholds updates might feel overshadowed in the family dynamic, seething with envy. Recognizing that they suffer internally can temper our frustration with a measure of sympathy, though it does not justify the behavior. Stoic compassion recognizes that people can be misguided by their emotions, and we remain open to reconciliation, but not at the expense of enabling harmful conduct. Altogether, these reflections on passive-aggressive withholding and body language discrepancies offer a second layer of understanding silent resentment. We see how resentful individuals might sabotage through omission or minor sabotage, and how their posture and micro-expressions can reveal the tension they try to hide. Modern Stoicism frames our response as a balance of calm vigilance, honest attempts at resolution, and a willingness to safeguard our own equilibrium. We neither overreact nor brush it aside, but approach it rationally. As we progress, we'll explore additional cues that likewise signal hidden antagonism, culminating in a broader strategy for identifying, interpreting, and responding to silent resentment in any environment. The consistent thread remains: Stoic self-control. We do not let suspicion dominate us. We do not become naive either. By calmly acknowledging the reality of passive aggression or contradictory body language, we position ourselves to act ethically and effectively, keeping bitterness from seeping into our own mindset. For now, we have laid out how subtle sabotage in the form of withheld support or tension-laden gestures can betray someone's quiet anger. We have also seen how to respond without compromising our own peace of mind or moral standards. This approach exemplifies the Stoic principle that we cannot force external harmony, but we can cultivate it within ourselves and gently invite others to join us in open, collaborative discourse. Where they refuse, we let them be, continuing on our path with composure intact. Stoicism does not promise that all resentments will be resolved, but it does guarantee that we can face them with clarity, resilience, and unwavering virtue. Welcome back. In our previous installments, we focused on the first 4 subtle signals that someone might harbor a silent resentment toward you: forced agreeableness, underhanded teasing, passive-aggressive withholding, and conflicted body language. Each of these behaviors can hint at private bitterness that's never openly expressed, and we've explored how a Stoic mindset empowers us to remain observant yet composed, responding with tempered rationality rather than impulsive reaction. We'll continue using modern Stoicism as our guiding framework, recognizing that while we cannot compel someone to be transparent or kind, we can choose how we interpret and address subtle signs of underlying hostility. Let's begin. Chapter 1. A Stoic Refresher. Why we look for these cues. A core Stoic principle reminds us that much of life lies outside our control. Other people's thoughts, attitudes, and resentments fall into that realm. Yet the Stoic path does not call for blind acceptance of every slight or subtle aggression. Instead, we cultivate awareness, spotting patterns of negativity so that we can respond rationally. Failing to notice silent resentment can lead us into repeated misunderstandings or even sabotage. By identifying these hidden clues, whether abrupt interactions or backhanded praise, we gain the clarity to protect our well-being and, ideally, foster more authentic communication. The balance of perception. Of course, modern Stoicism also warns us not to become suspicious of every mild annoyance. The person who answers in monosyllables might simply be having a bad day. The friend who phrases a compliment oddly might lack social finesse, not harbor secret bitterness. We aim to notice consistent patterns and repeated behavior. When a single incident escalates into a complete narrative, we risk distorting reality. It's the repeated or layered nature of these cues that signals genuine hidden resentment. Chapter 2. Cue number 5. Curt or abrupt. Defining the behavior. Imagine you ask a co-worker, "How's your day going?" and get only a terse reply. Fine. You try to discuss a project with them, but their responses are clipped. Yes, no, or whatever. They offer no warmth, no reciprocal questions, and they rarely elaborate unless you press them. In social or family contexts, a similarly abrupt pattern might emerge. You invite them to a gathering, and they respond with a curt, "Can't make it," leaving no explanation or sense of regret. Such curt or abrupt interactions typically imply more than mere introversion. Introverted people may speak less, but still convey some measure of genuine courtesy or interest. By contrast, the resentful person's replies feel cold, dismissive, as though they're deliberately withholding normal politeness or emotional presence. They may not be glaring or insulting, but their clipped tone and minimal engagement reveal underlying tensions. Why it suggests resentment. Motivated distance. By limiting conversation, they effectively say, "I don't want to talk to you more than necessary." Unexpressed frustration. Instead of confronting whatever bothers them, they opt to keep you at arm's length, offering only the bare minimum. Preemptive barrier. They might fear you'll probe their true feelings, so they build a wall of short replies, enough to appear functional but not friendly. The Stoic perspective on curt exchanges. A Stoic lens would first note patterns. Is the person abrupt with everyone, or mainly with you? If they're universally terse, you might be dealing with a personality style or a temporary mood. If they seem fine around others but clam up specifically when you approach, that's a stronger indicator of directed resentment. Key Stoic practices here. 1. Temperance. Resist the urge to mirror their abruptness with hostility. 2. Wisdom. Discern whether it's a persistent pattern or a short-lived phase. 3. Justice. If you suspect you might have wronged them, you can calmly acknowledge the possibility and offer to discuss. Handling abrupt interactions. 1. Extend a gentle invitation. "I've noticed you seem busy or not in the mood to chat lately. If there's something on your mind, I'm open to hearing it." The tone matters, non-accusatory, sincerely offering space for them to speak. 2. Don't push. If they remain curt, accept their stance without resentment. Stoicism encourages a light touch. We can't force them to open up if they choose silence. 3. Adjust engagement. If repeated efforts fail, limit your interactions to what's strictly necessary. Document any vital communication in writing, especially in work settings, so there's less room for confusion or sabotage. An example. Suppose you have a family member named Dylan who answers every question with a one-word reply. Fine, no, yes. Yet you see him chatting more openly with others. You suspect underlying tension, maybe an old grudge or envy. A Stoic approach is to maintain a polite tone. "Hey Dylan, I notice you seem quieter around me than usual. If there's anything you want to get off your chest, I'm here." If he shrugs you off, you let it be. The negativity is in his domain, not yours. You remain courteous, but you stop investing too much emotional energy trying to coax him out of his shell if he persists in shutting you out. Chapter 3. Cue number 6. Backhanded compliments. Identifying the subtle insult. A backhanded compliment might sound like praise, but there's an implied slight. For instance, "You did pretty well for someone with no formal training," or "I'm surprised you managed to handle that on your own." Ostensibly, these remarks applaud your accomplishment, but they also insinuate your lack of competence, status, or intelligence. They can be disorienting because part of you hears the praise, while another part registers the embedded put-down. In a social setting, you might hear, "You look great, almost unrecognizable," or I never thought you'd pull that off, but hey, congrats. Such statements often reflect underlying envy or resentment. The person wants to acknowledge your success or positive trait while subtly undermining it. Why resentful people use backhanded compliments. When individuals harbor resentment but don't wish to appear overtly hostile, backhanded compliments offer a cunning alternative. They can claim they're being nice while simultaneously diminishing you. If confronted, they might protest, "But I was complimenting you." This technique gives them deniability and can make you second-guess whether you're being overly sensitive. Stoic clarity amid mixed messages. From a Stoic viewpoint, your first task is to remain steady and interpret the remark rationally. Ask, is there a consistent pattern of these off-kilter compliments from this person? Do they seem genuine, or do they always carry an undercurrent of belittlement? Stoicism encourages you to consider the evidence without letting pride or immediate offense cloud your judgment. 1. Pause and breathe. When you detect a possible backhanded compliment, resist any flash of anger. 2. Assess the pattern. Do they repeatedly frame their compliments in a way that implies doubt about your abilities or worth? 3. Stay centered. Stoicism teaches that your real value isn't determined by their commentary. Their words belong to them. Responding with poise. Neutral inquiry. You might reply with calm curiosity, "Thanks, I think." What makes you say, for someone with no training? This invites them to clarify. Sometimes they may scramble to justify their comment. Short, polite acknowledgement. If it's not worth delving into, a simple "appreciate it," said with a polite tone, can suffice. You note the potential insult, but don't escalate tension. Private conversation. If you value the relationship, discuss it one-on-one. When you said, "I'm surprised you managed that. It felt like a slight against my competence. Is there something else going on?" If the person's resentment runs deep, they might double down, acting innocent. The Stoic principle is that we control our own virtue and stability, not theirs. If they refuse to engage honestly, you let the matter rest, adjusting how much credence you give to their future remarks. A quick scenario. Imagine your friend, Ava, says, "Wow, your presentation was actually good. I didn't think you had time to prepare." It lands as a compliment, but also reveals she doubted your capability. You politely answer, "I appreciate that. I guess I managed my time better than expected." If it's an isolated incident, maybe there's no issue. But if Ava routinely drops such remarks, "Wow, that outfit looks expensive. Who knew you'd splurge?" you gather that she likely harbors mild envy or resentment. A Stoic response is to neither bristle nor yield to insecurity. You calmly accept her words, keep a mental note, and if necessary, address the pattern in a measured conversation. If she insists she's just joking or denies any subtext, you accept her stance, but maintain your inner dignity, not letting her disguised barbs erode your self-esteem. Chapter 4. Why these new cues matter: deeper relationship impact. Curt interactions and backhanded compliments might seem relatively minor compared to outright conflict, yet their subtlety can erode trust and comfort over time. They foster a kind of emotional drip that gnaws at both parties. The resentful person gains petty satisfaction from their veiled negativity, while you might feel uneasy, wondering if you did something wrong or if you're imagining the subtext. Recognizing these cues halts that cycle of confusion, letting you see the situation with Stoic clarity. There is likely resentment at play, and you can respond appropriately. Checking for consistency across all cues. Along with the 4 cues previously discussed, forced agreeableness, underhanded teasing, passive-aggressive withholding, and mismatched body language, These two new ones form a more complete picture of hidden hostility. You might notice that a resentful coworker not only withholds help, but also responds brusquely to your questions, occasionally praising you in ways that undercut your skills. When multiple signs converge, you have stronger evidence that silent antagonism exists. Stoic compassion. Modern Stoicism doesn't translate to indifference about others' feelings. It means acknowledging you don't control them, but you can maintain goodwill and justice in how you engage. If you sense that a friend's abruptness stems from personal struggles, you might gently ask if everything's okay in their life, while still setting boundaries on how their mood affects you. Compassion here is balanced, recognizing their humanity, but not sacrificing your own peace or dignity in the process. Chapter 5. A Stoic-based plan of action. When confronted with curt or dismissive interactions and backhanded praise, here are steps guided by Stoic principles. Observe calmly. Don't jump to confrontation or brood in silence. Gather consistent evidence of their behavior. Reflect on your role. Have you inadvertently done something that might prompt their annoyance or envy? If so, consider an apology or acknowledgement, calmly offered. Engage with composure or attempt a respectful chat if the relationship matters. For curt responses, I sense you're not in a talkative mood lately. Is there something we should address? For backhanded compliments, I appreciate your comment. Can you clarify what you meant? Respect their choice. If they deny any issue or brush you off, accept that their resentment may remain hidden. You can't force sincerity. Set or adjust boundaries. If the negativity persists, shape your interactions to protect your own tranquility. In a work environment, keep communication professional and documented. In personal life, engage less frequently or only in group settings if that eases tension. Practice emotional detachment. Remember, their resentment is rooted in their perceptions or experiences. That's outside your control. You remain kind, but don't let their negativity undermine your self-worth. Chapter 6. Illustrative examples. Curt interactions at work. You have a colleague named Miguel who, for months, answered you politely. But after you were praised by management on a recent project, Miguel's demeanor turned cold. Now, whenever you ask for input, he says, "It's fine," or "No idea," and moves on. You notice he chats enthusiastically with others, yet stays aloof around you. Stoic reflection. You consider if your recent success overshadowed Miguel's efforts, or if you inadvertently seemed boastful. Action. You attempt a calm conversation. "Miguel, is there something on your mind about the project or how we handle tasks? You seem distant lately." Possible outcome. Miguel might open up about feeling underappreciated, or he might deny any problem, staying curt. Either way, you've shown willingness to mend fences. If he remains cold, you stay civil, adjusting expectations for camaraderie. A backhanded compliment in a family gathering. Your cousin Priya greets you at a holiday dinner with, "Wow, you look great these days. Almost didn't recognize you without the usual casual clothes." The compliment that you look great is nullified by the insinuation that you normally don't. Stoic pause. You briefly note the incongruity. Is this a one-off awkward comment or part of a pattern? Response. You might smile politely and say, "Thanks, I guess I dress differently for special occasions," letting the subtext pass without dramatic confrontation. If Priya habitually frames compliments to undercut you, you could politely address it in private. "Priya, I sense that your comments about my appearance come with a hidden jab. Is something bothering you?" Outcome: she might laugh it off or deny ill intent. You then decide if further dialogue is worth pursuing. Through it all, you remain calm, not letting your mood be hijacked by her passive sting. Chapter 7. Common pitfalls to avoid: over-interpreting. Every curt reply: people have off days. Not all shortness or weirdly phrased praise equals resentment. Look for repetition. Confronting publicly: calling someone out in front of others for their clipped words or backhanded compliments can inflame embarrassment and deepen their resentment. Stoicism suggests a private, measured approach, mirroring their negativity. If you respond in kind, dishing out your own cutting remarks or abruptness, you feed the cycle. A Stoic approach means preserving your grace and not letting external negativity shape your character. Forcing a confession, badgering them to admit they resent you, often backfires. Stoic wisdom is comfortable with uncertain outcomes. You can invite honesty, but can't demand it. Chapter 8. Moving toward Part 4. Having now examined 6 cues in total, you may notice how they often overlap. A co-worker who's forcedly agreeable could also withhold information. A friend giving backhanded compliments might also appear physically tense, body language discrepancy. A sibling who's abrupt and minimal in conversation might follow it up with offhand jokes in group settings. Each sign alone might be ambiguous, but in combination they paint a clearer picture of someone's silent hostility. Recognizing these patterns is the first step to responding like a modern Stoic, balanced, purposeful, and resilient in the face of concealed grudges. In the final part, we'll introduce the 7th and last cue. Then we'll weave all 7 cues into a cohesive strategy: how to determine if someone is truly resentful, how best to respond, when to attempt reconciliation, and when to accept their stance and guard your well-being. Conclusion: using Stoic poise. Curt replies and backhanded flattery both revolve around subtleties. They don't roar with obvious animosity, yet they can slowly chip away at trust or confidence if we remain oblivious. From a Stoic viewpoint, awareness is our shield. By calmly identifying these cues without leaping to anger or dismissiveness, we maintain emotional balance. We can compassionately address the possible tension, or, if the other party denies everything, choose to protect our mental clarity through strategic boundaries. Resentment, especially when silent, rarely resolves itself without at least some attempt at recognition. But the ultimate Stoic principle remains: their inner emotions are not ours to control. We hold our ground in integrity and composure, offering respect and directness. If that fosters better understanding, wonderful. If not, we still abide in a sense of self-possession, a hallmark of modern Stoicism in practice. If you've recognized any of these 7 cues in a key relationship, trust that approaching it stoically can save you from needless conflict or anxiety. Observe calmly, gather evidence, open a door to conversation if it's worthwhile, and respect the results. Whatever their choice, to share or keep festering, your inner state remains in your own hands. That is the quiet power of modern Stoicism, an unwavering center in the swirl of social complexities. Now, if any part of this message has been helpful to you, leave us your like and comment, helping the algorithm recommend it to someone who needs it at this time. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos. And if you look through the videos we've already uploaded, you're sure to find something to take with you. Have a good day.